This is the 4x4 Earth podcast. I'm James Ealing, and you're listening to track 53 of the 4x4 Earth podcast, Land Access and Four-Wheel Drive Victoria.
Join James from 4x4earth.com as he learns all there is to know about four-wheel driving, camping, fishing, and getting out and exploring our great country on the 4x4 Earth podcast.
Hey, four-wheel drivers, welcome back to the podcast. This is the second part of the podcast where we interviewed the CEO of Four-Wheel Drive Victoria, Wayne Hevey. Before we get back into it, a couple of public service announcements. Who would you like to hear on the podcast next? You know, I think we've done a pretty good job of getting some fairly interesting people to talk on the show. Who would you like to hear from next? Keen to see who you would like to hear from. If you're loving the podcast, please share it. Like and share on Facebook, and definitely check out the forum. Join the conversation about every one of these episodes. And lastly, don't forget to check out the 4x4 Earth merch. It helps keep the lights on for the 4x4 Earth website and the podcast. Now, that's about it for public service announcements. Let's get back into our podcast with Wayne Hevey. So, in relation to access for MVO tracks, that's only available to club members, isn't it?
Absolutely, yes. It's one of the benefits of being a club member, association member.
Correct. And so to what degree does Four-Wheel Drive Victoria represent four-wheel drivers as opposed to club members?
Well, obviously we're all about the four-wheel drivers around the state, but we'd like to think people join the club. That's been one of the benefits. The other benefits are, of course, the insurance we offer to our members. Now, a lot of guys, I've spoken to a few of those Facebook groups, and, you know, well done them for getting a group together, but they have to understand that leading a trip on a Saturday or a weekend could cause you grief in the long run. If someone was to fall off the face of the earth and be maimed or killed, coroner's going to be looking to find out who's negligent. Who called the trip? Who ran the trip? What qualifications have you got to do so? What insurance have you got? Bingo. All of a sudden, all those things come into play. And litigation these days, as everyone knows, it's growing. It's getting worse and worse as we talk. Lawyers get involved. Money gets taken out of pockets. People lose houses. So the insurance factor, and we've got four policies which we're really proud of having. One is $20 million public liability when clubs are on events. Second one is personal accident insurance for clubs. And unfortunately, we've had a couple of deaths in our association over the last 3 years, and there's been payouts on those deaths because of the accidents that made them occur. Very unfortunate, but there's a lot of other things that come into personal accident insurance to do with different coverage. Third one is our committee members of all our clubs have got professional indemnity, so they can't be sued for someone in the club doing wrong things. The last one is all our instructors are covered by insurance. So if I taught someone to drive tomorrow and they went out next week and they killed themselves or killed someone else in their car, I'm covered insurance-wise. And we look to cover all sorts of things. That if someone comes up with a reason to want to get coverage on another area, we would certainly look to cover that off for our members' benefits. So we're very conscious and cognizant of what needs to be done to look after our members. So back to your question, the other people who drive four-wheel drives throughout the state, we all love to see them join us. We're not blackmailing anyone. Some people say we are. We're not blackmailing anyone to join the association. That's up to people's own criteria and their requirements. But for God's sake, we're trying to offer the best possible solutions to make sure that we keep the state going and make it a representative body. And well, as we say in our strategic planning, there's a couple of visions and outcomes. We want four-wheel drivers to see economic benefits from four-wheel driving in the state. And this economic benefits means putting money back in the communities we pass through. And that's one of the other things we really keep tabs on as far as our members going out through the communities. We ask them to report how much that they spend on fuel, food, accommodation throughout little townships. And then that gets put back to the government too. So it becomes a tourism thing. Four-wheel drivers are coming to Victoria as the premier four-wheel driving state in Australia. Right? It's another one of our key outcomes. And there's two others. Four-wheel drivers provide a range of health and social connections. So we're trying to prove that being out in the four-wheel drive, enjoying the bush, is good for your social well-being. And the last one is Four-Wheel Drive Victoria wants the Victorian four-wheel drive experience to be enriched for all those that get out there. So these are the strategies we're working towards with the funding we have. Right? And that's a 4-year plan, and that's ongoing, as we say. There's been research going through now, and almost finished on all sorts of four-wheel drivers to encapsulate all of those different bodies and people and cars and whatnot, to make sure we do bring the whole thing, bring the game to the multitudes.
Just one question. It's a question without notice, but regarding the insurance, has there ever been I'm quite keen to talk to a lawyer about this, because the perception within a lot of people who aren't club members is that the idea that the trip leader has a duty of care really came around at the instigation of Four Wheel Drive Victoria a number of years ago. Before that, there was no real concept, and I know I've spoken to police officers unofficially and said, you know, what if I say, hey, everyone, we're going to go up this hill. I go up the hill and I'm fine because I'm super experienced, which I'm not, but if I was, and then old mate behind me who's on his first trip and has got road tyres and I haven't checked anything like that, he goes off the edge. The people I've spoken to have said, well, it's a single vehicle accident. How's it any different from me deciding to go and do burnouts in a street intersection and then telling someone else, you should do burnouts as well? How does that nexus of duty of care get created when the driver has a responsibility to make sure they're doing something that's safe?
Well, through the association, we have the clubs that have their own rules and regulations, but certainly from our point of view, a tour leader has the responsibility to make sure he knows who's in his convoy. And we do run by the LRC, or Australian Standards Association, which are recommendations only, not legislated rules, but that we have no more than 10 vehicles per convoy. And that's to look after the other people, participants on the tracks or the roads, so we don't sort of cause them any disruption or heartache about getting around us, whatever. But the trip leader is the person who should be very aware of who's in his convoy, and he should also, in our eyes, take all responsibility. One of the reasons for our insurance is we take very, very good care about risk management, and part of that is the tour leader having information in his glove box about who's in the convoy, well, what their medical requirements in a sealed envelope, so that if someone does fall off the track and gets injured, they can actually see that this person is someone who's can have or has got afflictions to some sort of medical condition, whether it be a seizure or whatever else, and that's all noted so that they know what to do if that person gets injured. The trip leader is the person who runs the trip and controls it, so that if someone was to bring along a friend on a Saturday morning when the trip was about to start, and this guy hasn't been cited by anyone else, his car's not been cited, whether it's roadworthy or not, whether his tyres are actually the right tyres for the trip, it's the trip leader's obligation to make sure that that doesn't impact on the rest of the trip or the party, right? We cover off as much as we can in a legal sense to make sure that person can't be held responsible in any way, shape or form. That's what we're trying to do. So it's all about a duty of care, taking the high line. Whether clubs take that on board and run with it is up to themselves. But we say, please don't come back to us and say, we didn't know about that, and we wish you had told us. So we think we're right in saying this. I must say that one of our former presidents is a lawyer, a barrister. So I would have to take it up with him whether it's got any legal basis. It was certainly put in place before my time. Yep. But I certainly run with the idea that the risk management angle from it is a wonderful thing. And as I say, the insurers, even though we've had 2 unfortunate deaths, they do like the way we run and the way we do things, because we do try and cover off all those areas of risk. Yeah.
Okay.
So please, that's where that stands. And as I say, I'm happy to be challenged on that. I'm happy to be, spoken to again about it. I'd like to get some legal. In fact, I can go back to our legal man now. He sits up there in Yarrawonga these days with his business, and I'll chase that myself.
Well, if he's interested to chat, because I know that many people view this as a fundamental issue because of the fact that there's a lot of people. It's a significant disincentive to people going four-wheel driving, or it is a perceived disincentive because of the fact that people feel that they only feel comfortable going four-wheel driving with their mates because they know that they're solid. They don't want to go and take a bunch of newbies out four-wheel driving because of the fact that, who knows, they could be loose, they could be idiots, they could spear off into the wild blue yonder and do all sorts of crazy things. And people, because of the fact that if they're responsible, they're very unlikely to take the responsibility for them because, is a vehicle roadworthy? And I think, is a vehicle roadworthy? Now, it should be black and white, but I think there is a bit of interpretation into that, and that we've had numerous stories of where, there's the interpretation of that, and particularly cross state lines as well. That can be an issue. Because the way that I think about the problem is that first trip is really important, because I've spoken to multiple people who go, oh yeah, four-wheel drivers are idiots. And it's like, well, why is that? And when you get down to it, they went four-wheel driving that first time and, with their brand new $80,000 Land Cruiser, they got panel damage on it. Their wife, gave them a severe tongue lashing and it's like, you're an idiot, we just spent all this money on this car. And that was the last time they went four-wheel driving. If that first time is a great time, then they're much more likely to come out for the second time, and the second time will lead out to the 100th time, and then the four-wheel driving community is a lot stronger because there's someone who says going out four-wheel driving, for all of the reasons that you listed, is important.
Yep. That's exactly right. So we find a lot of people join clubs based on that premise that they want to get experience and go out with people who've got experience, rather than put themselves with their brand new expensive car, as you mentioned, into the bush and not know what they're doing. And this is a wonderful thing. And people join clubs, and clubs generally have different types of trips. They take the beginners out on a beginner's trip, so it's nice and sedate, and they give them all the instruction they require. And a lot of clubs actually won't take someone on a trip until they've done a driver training course, whether it's through 4 Drive Victoria ourselves or through their own club, which you've got instructors who are accredited from us. This is all about building confidence in someone to be able to drive their car to somewhere near its capabilities and have a good time doing it, take their family out to the bush and come home very safe and have had a wonderful experience. And that's what it's all about from our point of view. So we hope that people sort of look at that in that respect. And I certainly understand what you're just saying. The first trip can be one that lets you either keep coming back or tells you that this is not for me, I'm going home. Because someone scared the pants off me. And that has happened many times, of course.
Correct. And I think we've all, sort of seen that where it's like, hey, this dude should not have been on this. And like, I think fundamentally it's not fair on them because, having been a new four-wheel driver and having gone out on a couple of trips that, were people who were a lot more experienced, I've been on trips where people weren't really thinking about me and my vehicle. And it's not much fun being that guy.
Absolutely right. And I've been there myself in the early days.
Yep.
It's not much fun, and you don't want your car being destroyed in one fell swoop. And as I say, it could actually scare the pants off you and stop you going out again.
There's a lot of expensive noises that come from the underside of the vehicle, I've found.
happens too often. And we, in the office here, we get a lot of reports from people coming to grief because of, inexperience and stupidity, I must say, and not being in the right kind of, sort of areas for the skill sets that are there, and that's what it's all about: having skill sets to be able to drive the vehicle safely and bring the family home on a Sunday night or whatever, having had a great time. Yeah,
in your daily driver.
Yeah, that's right. There's a lot of four-wheel drives out there that don't hit the dirt, and they're the ones to pick up if you're going to buy one. Try and get one that's never been off road, but. There's also a lot of people get out there and they think, well, I'll go and do this, and then all of a sudden they've got trouble. Now, a lot of the decision, of course, is that you buy a big four-wheel drive and you put the big wheels on all of that, and that then gives you, absolutely immune to any sort of unfortunate occasion. That's crap. The most experienced people can get hung up and bogged and cause grief. The most experienced. And it's a matter of, first thing we teach people about going into the bushes on a big day where it's raining or there's some sort of weather condition, do we need to be there? That's always the first question we put to people. If you saw something like this, would you want to be there? Do you need to go? Do you need to travel down that river that's swollen and flowing very quickly? Do you need to cross the river, not travel down to cross it? Do you need to, sort of all these different scenarios we throw up and say, do you really want to be in that position where you may find yourself in trouble, both personally and mechanically? So, yeah, it's an interesting conversation. But that's part of our training, with what we do in our RTO.
Four-wheel drive Victoria, and you've mentioned the program that you've got with the Victorian government.
Yep.
How do you manage the perceived conflict of interest that you've got with the Victorian government?
Well, as I say, back in the old days, we had no funding in real terms. The funding was coming out of class to support my wage at the time, my boss's wage at the time, and one other. That dried up, and there was no funding. So back in 2000, was it 13, 12? It was, we're looking down the barrel. The fees from the members were supporting maybe one or two people in the association. The rest of the crew had to be taken out of the game. So all of a sudden we found ourselves in a hole, and it was chatting to the powers that be and both the government and land managers got us this ability to move forward. And I'm not, without going into great detail, we put forward some strategy requirement, and we got funding for it. So the funding is there to not only support the association in its context now, but also to make sure we can produce these projects and programs we're working towards over the next 4 years. And by the way, the funding is not there forever. We are on a very, very tight line or tight rein to make sure we become self-sufficient in a very short period of time. So I'd say within 2021 or thereabouts, when this funding runs out, the strategy comes to be, we will need to show some very good results, and the funding may diminish. So we're trying to build ourselves a little bank or a nest egg that gives us the buffer if we come to that point, as we did back in 12 and 13, where the funding did run out, so we can move forward and continue as an association and bring some sort of product to the members and those who want to join us. Yeah. Some of the other interested parties, they get funded too, though. We're not the only person or the only association that gets funding. So there's noise out there that we are one on and we're not. I went to a night with what did you say? Those guys at the 800 things. I went to a night out there one night and I got those land blasts. The kids are bending over and what you know, they straight off. Those chaps get funding also. So,
yeah, so I think the Sporting Shooters Association gets funding as well.
Yes, and the deer hunters. I get paid to go and coal things in the chance. So anyway, look, I'm not going to argue. It's what it is. We're very proud of where we sit as an association. I think we've done a lot of great work in the last 5 or 6 years, and we've got a very strong board now that it really does have a progressive notion about moving forward and giving, putting benefits back to our members. That's what it's all about. No more, no less. There's nobody's done statues being built or anything, no medals being given. It's all about looking after our members and making sure that we have the ability to drive through the wonderful landscape.
So, when it comes to land management, what's the relationship between Four-Wheel Drive Victoria and other land users? And is there any... Does Four-Wheel Drive Victoria see any value, or do you try and use an access for all approach to land management?
Go back about 2 years and maybe a little bit longer.
It's just a little bit muffled there.
Okay, sorry. About 2 years ago, just over 2 years ago, we called a meeting which we held in Bulleen at a hotel, and we had 15 different user groups come together. From the deer hunters, the bushwalkers, prospectors, miners, the fishing games and fishing party, timber, thick forest was there. Even Daniel Young, at the time, the MLA for the Farmers, Shooters and Fishers Party, he came along. And we all threw our hats in the ring. In fact, the young lady from the Great National Forest Park, Sarah Roos, I think her name is, and she came along and put her point forward. And with respect to all parties, it was said by the chap who facilitated the meeting, this will be a discussion about where we're all from, what our endeavours and our requirements are of the use of the land. If anyone gets out of whack, they'll be asked to leave the room. And that's how it started and that's how it finished. Unfortunately, we haven't got together since then, and this sort of action that has to happen. I have spoken to other people, from other parties about getting these things happening again, and it would be a fantastic thing where we could sit round, put the cards on the table, and really, belt out some of the issues that we're talking about now, and try and, not step on each other's toes. So we work together in the actual use of the land and our approach to the government. And not forgetting that, government's all about numbers. It's all about the votes that come through is going to dictate what happens in any sense. And that really, you can get involved in the political argument here right now with, no, I won't do that. I'll leave it alone. But certainly we need to have these meetings with other user groups so we all understand where we're coming from, what our requirements are, and so on and so forth. Of course, the other one that's being sort of dealt a bit of a bad hands, the horse riding community. And I speak to the president of that association. I have done often over the last 12, 18 months, and I empathise with them. They're being sort of shut out of a lot of the areas they like to ride in because of the notion that the horses effluent does damage to the land and produces things that we don't want to know about. So, look, we need to have these meetings, yes. Very happy to go along and do that.
So something like Bug You, is that something that you could potentially engage with, or are they not?
Look, okay, well, just on that point, it's very hard from our point of view to sit. I'd love to sit down and talk to the guys, but they've got to understand there's ways and means of achieving a result. Calling blokes like Ruthie down from Queensland and start rattling bloody sabres and stuff and carrying on, that doesn't achieve anything. Conciliatory conversation with respect to all parties is the only way we work, and that's the way it happens. So to have stuff put out in the press which is not quite true, to try and engage and enrage people to come along and form rallies and stuff, that's not the way we work. We go into meetings and we sit down, we throw our cards on the table, and we tell people what we're on about, and and just with great respect, you've got to say this is what we would like to achieve. How do we go about it? Not tell them you're going to do this for us. That's not the way it works. So, as I say, I can't say that strongly enough. The opportunity for us to talk with these people, I'd love to get involved, but it's got to be done in the right manner. And shouting and screaming and swearing at people, and then going off and going nuts and Parliament House, it may achieve some things for some, but certainly from our point of view, we don't need to go down that track. We do things a lot differently. And we get great results from how we do it. So, and that's not just with this particular party at the moment. Politics is a game you've got to play. You've got to be very apolitical and look after yourself on both sides of the fence and all different parties, and we do that. So, yeah.
Because that is the interesting thing, that, the political parties do change from time to time.
Well, just look at the scenario right now. The Labor Party came into power, and I'm getting political now, they came into power offering national parks to the Greenies back in Lucy Neville's day. And we were great mates with Ryan Smith when he was in power with the coalition before Labor got into power. So everyone votes for the Labor Party, and then all of a sudden this Central Western investigation thing started up, and guess who was running that? The Labor Party. And guess what happened the last election? They got voted in with a landslide. So all those people who are out there banging the drum now, they're probably the same people who voted them back in. So you can draw your own analogy from that. But anyway, we're very mindful of being very impartial, and we don't take sides. We talk to all parties, we talk to all people. All we have to do and what we want to do is make sure they understand our position and where we want to be in respect to our members and the association. Simple as that.
Cool. Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground. Was there anything else that you wanted to say, about four-wheel drive Victoria? Well, what are the sort of plans? Where do you want to see four-wheel driving in Victoria in the next sort of 5 years?
Well, as I said before, the strategy says, we want to make sure that the government realises four-wheel driving is a pastime. It's a recreational pastime which is delivering economic benefits to the state. It's providing health and social connections. It's giving people great experiences out there in the bush. And it's also showing that Victoria itself is the premier four-wheel drive state that people want to come to. And I think that's reflected in the fact that interstate drivers come down to Victoria to take advantage of the wonderful, diverse areas we've got around us. Also, we've got to demonstrate respect for cultural, environmental and other values of public land. And then, that then brings along that four-wheel driving will be respected as a legitimate recreational pastime. And that's where we're sort of coming from with our strategic plan, and hopefully that's what's going to happen.
Excellent.
So, yeah, it is.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we've got some amazing tracks, and we just need to keep them open. And ideally, my thing is, we should be definitely looking at track openings. And I think you mentioned it a bit. That four-wheel drive tourism thing. I passionately believe, because you see it on the weekend, there are some towns out there that are literally hanging on by their fingernails to be economically viable, and the four-wheel driving community is sometimes the difference between them packing up shop and closing a town down and being able to stay open. And that's why, track access, it's not just about four-wheel drivers, it's about all of those people's livelihoods in a lot of those beautiful rural towns. And it's a symbiotic thing. We need them to be able to assist us with the access that we've got. It's nice to be able to do an iconic track and have, amenities 30 minutes, 60 minutes away. There's a lot less people when you go out into the far off hinterland where you're 2 hours from fuel and the local store. You tend to get a lot less people out there. Now, I know that that's a moderately good thing, but it's not accessible to a lot of people and of marginal economic viability.
Very true indeed. So, we're all about trying to make sure that communities don't vanish, as you say, and just stated. It's all about getting out there and travelling through the countryside and putting money back into these communities so they do stay viable. Given that the climate change is affecting all those things such as timber harvesting and all those, biodiversity, the silviculture, all that stuff that comes in from the science point of view. We got to be mindful of the fact that communities are affected by this, and we need to try and help those communities stay alive. Yep.
Excellent. Well,
excellent.
Yeah, thank you very much, Wayne. I think we've covered a lot of ground, and hopefully people have got a bit more information. If people want more information, where do you want them to go?
Just come to the office. Ring the office on 9874 7222, or send us an email at the office at fwdvictoria.org.au.
Cool. I'll include a link in the show notes.
Thank you. Very happy to talk to anyone, mate, really.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks very much, mate. Cheers.
As discussed, check out the show notes. There'll be a link to 4 Wheel Drive Victoria's website, or you could just Google them. And a big thank you for Wayne for coming in, answering those questions. Hopefully it's given you a little bit better idea of what it is that 4 Wheel Drive Victoria is doing. And, there's probably a little bit more to explore in some of those items that we have discussed. A couple of things. I'm shocked that 2 people have been killed with branches falling off trees. That's really quite the tragedy. Very, very sad indeed. And what is it that we can be doing with that? I'd be interested to know what the fires were like in those areas, and if those trees would have been better if the land had been better managed from a fire reduction point of view. That's a big issue, which we didn't really go into too much depth. Probably be interesting to find a subject matter expert on that one, because fires in, I think pretty much all of the states, it's a big drama. That's about it. Stay safe out there, and hopefully I'll see you on the tracks. Bye.
4x4earth.com is used by over 200,000 people every month to find great tracks, organise trips, and find out how to better enjoy exploring the great outdoors. There's over 1,000 tracks and 300 campsites ready for you to explore. So check out 4x4earth.com today and sign up to get access to the track information, ask questions, and meet other 4x4 Earthers. Membership is completely free. If you're looking for a good route, check out 4x4earth.com today.